Okay, good morning. And good morning, this SCANVAC webinar on REPower Nordic, experience of energy saving. And it's my pleasure and honor to be chairing of that. And my name is Risto Kosonen. I'm also president of SCANVAC. And this topic have rise up after discussion with the Nordic colleagues that it's important to sharing experience what we have in energy saving when we have the challenges for energy and especially energy power for some countries. And we have huge demand to saving energy in the winter time, and that may be causing some kind of challenges for the indoor climate conditions. And also maybe we have challenges to keep the needed energy targets and cost level, what we are talking about. And for that sense, we are now focusing on this topic and collect some key talks for different Nordic countries and what kind of experience we have it here. So if I go further for the next slide, I think it's important to know that this webinar will be recorded and it will be available in the SCANVAC webpage later this week. Also for the audience, it's important that you can ask the questions. There is a question and answer possibilities in the chat, and after the talks in the end of this webinar, we go through the questions what you have it there. So just a short introduction of the speakers. We have Lars Gunnarsen talking about colder air without adequate ventilation can increase risk of the mold. Then we have Tapio Jalo talking about experience of energy saving program in Senati properties. Third speaker is Siim Meeliste talking about helicopter fuel market-based energy saving measures in Estonian commercial buildings. And the last speaker is Linda Hägerhed from Sweden talk about poor indoor quality and mold in homes in the wake of overcrowding, higher living cost and energy prices. So this is the program, and I would like now introduce the first speaker, Lars Gunnarsen, to start and sharing your screen, and floor is yours, Lars.
Lars, you have to open your microphone.
So now I'm probably able to speak and can begin my presentation. Colder air without adequate ventilation can increase the risk of mold. I used to be professor at Aalborg University, and now I have started my own little company, Indemiljørådgiver, indoor environmental advisor. I will bring you through some headlines, and it will not all be about mold growth as a productivity, spread of infectious diseases, thermal comfort, and then this focus on moisture problems and something about a joint responsibility between operational staff and occupants, and finally a summary. So well-known old findings. When we have poor thermal sensations, then our productivity drops. And of course, this is very serious when we think about school environments, that learning is not so efficient. And I'm sure our employers is also quite focused on this. And it is it's quite important to know that when we earn a salary and we are not in thermal comfort, then we may not be worth our salary. it's a joint obligation, of course, between employer and employee that we should not suffer from feeling cold and feeling warm. And then it's also, of course, quite important to recognize that thermal sensation is a response of temperature and clothing and activity. So it's not impossible to feel comfortable even in quite cold environments. Spread of infectious diseases. Here we have something with the size of the droplets that are spreading these. If we are in warm and dry environments, the droplets we exhale and cough out will very soon become little particles, and in more humid environments, the evaporation of water around the particles will be slow, and some will keep being droplets that can traject directly to our surrounding occupants or drop to floors and desks. It's important in this aspect to recognize that the viruses that might be infectious, they are so small that they can stay airborne for a long time. And what when we are in the virus range, as a 0.001 or 0.01, then this displacement to diffusion is important. And when we are in the droplet range, then displacement due to sedimentation is the important transport mode for these particles. Another old finding, of course, is that when you are exposed to something that make you feel cold, then you are far more vulnerable to infections. So I find this a very strong experiment. For 20 minutes, half the test persons were asked to take off shoes and socks and sit with their feet in a bucket with cold water at 10 degrees Celsius. And the other half, the control group, sat in with their feet in empty buckets without their shoes and socks off, also for 20 minutes. And then 4 to 5 days later, the difference between subjects reporting to have a common cold was significant and quite marked. 13 out of the 45 that had been sitting there with cold feet were reporting they had a common cold, and only 5 among the control group. When it comes to this impact, as for a while during last year, the energy crisis and the rise of gas prices for domestic heating was very high. Then also in offices, public offices or governmental offices, we were recommended to have only 19 degrees. So this blue line is trying to intercept 1.2 met, the traditional way of thinking that this is the activity we have when we do office work, and the red line is intercepting 22 degrees, my approximation of what I used to have in my office before that crisis last winter. Something like 0.9 clo value and something like 1.4 clo value to be in comfort. And then when we look at these clo values, also the closest I can get to the high, is trousers, long sleeve shirts, long sleeve sweater, t-shirt, suit jacket, and long underwear bottoms. So that's a lot of clothes to have on. So this is what I used to go to work with, and last winter I used a lot more clothing, and of course the unusual thing for me was these long underwears under my trousers. The other problem with 19 degree, and that is of course the primary focus of this presentation, the colder air gets, the less actual water the air can contain, and it's obvious, I guess, to most of us that the diffusion of water molecules is not in relation to relative humidity, but to absolute water content. So if we kind of have the absolute water content at something I have estimated to be an average cold day in Denmark, I'm sure in other Nordic countries an average cold day will be a lot more than 10 degrees, but my approximation here is made for 10 degrees, and we all have days with 10 degrees outside, of course. And then I have the 19 degrees and the 22 degrees. So what I'm thinking here as a risk of mold is 70% relative humidity, and we have 11.5 in the warm environment, 9.5 in the 19 degrees, and 7.5 grams per kilo in the outside air on a rainy day at 10 degrees Celsius. So here comes the primitive calculations I've done. So how much more water can indoor air contain at 70 degrees and 22 degrees than at 19 degrees and same relative humidity? It doesn't seem really scary as a 21%. But still remarkably. But when it really becomes serious, and when we can recognize that lowering indoor air temperature from something we were used to down to 19 is the reply to how much higher air change rate is required at 19 degrees than at 22 degrees to have the same assurance not to exceed 70%. And here my simple calculations say it's a factor 2. So this was something many Danes failed to have when there was this brief very high energy price last winter. And as many of us have experienced mold growth during that winter, and to kind of communicate when you have 19 degrees indoor, you need to air out your office or your home twice as much as you used to do. And of course, every time we open the window and create a cross draft, then we definitely feel cold. So this message is tough to spread, and also very important. maintenance of houses are normally 3 times as expensive as climatization of houses. So if we do something that will increase our maintenance cost, then it's bad. And the other side of mold growth is, of course, that we risk to have headache and feel tired, and we risk to become allergic. And if we are allergic to mold, then that's a very serious and bad situation. Many more of the people being allergic to mold move forward to having asthmatic diseases, and it's of course much more normal to be allergic to pollen, grass pollen. I think the figures are something like 27% of the Danish population are allergic to pollen, and maybe only 4 or 6% are allergic to spores or remains of mold. But those, the little fraction, they have a worse prognosis for their disease development. My primitive calculations before can also be supported by Siim, a computer program from my old employer. So if we think about a small apartment, not very unusual, 6 times 8 meters, 48 square meters, it is small, and a ceiling height of 2.4 meter. And I guess you can read the rest as 2 persons living there with normal moisture production, nice windows exposed to sunshine from the south, and these people living there, they air out with a lot of air changes when temperatures are exceeding 25 degrees. And it's a modern house with a nice U value of 0.3 watt per square meter Kelvin. So a lot of information on this chart: relative outdoor humidity and how many hours above these humidities. So here all the hours of the year are above, and actually there are not so many hours up here above 95% relative humidity. So relative humidity indoor at 19 degrees, and this of course is where we are in trouble. When we are more than 70%, so 1,000 hours where mold growth is supported indoor at 19 degrees, and nearly 0 hours above 70% when we have 22 degrees. So this little fraction, but 1,000 hours, and maybe they come in a row, will support mold growth. And of course, this is an apartment we are envisioning with no cold surfaces anywhere. So if we have some cold surfaces around the windows or somewhere else, then those places could have mold growth earlier on. So this is something I see as a big problem if we go to 19 degrees normally, and if we don't have a lot of excess airing out in the cold periods. My presentation is coming to the end, but of course this figure where operation staff and user behavior is part of what exposes occupants, air, sound, light, temperature, and humidity. And we have the outside. When we make changes, then this shared responsibility between operation staff and occupants becomes very important. And how to communicate that now, because of energy expenditures or energy shortages, we decide that you should wear a lot more clothes to be comfortable. And now we decide that also you, dear occupants, need to be far more active in airing out. In spite, you will definitely feel cold when you are airing out. So here we have a communication challenge and a cooperation challenge that's very often not met successfully as an operation staff. My boss told me I need to put you down to 19 degrees. So you just put on more clothes. Not this message. I'm sorry, we have to put down, and I have some information that's important for you to follow. Do you have any comments? As the positive approach with the dialogue and careful communication. So this is the end. My summary. We perform and learn less when we are not in thermal comfort. So take on clothes if you are cold. And of course, my experience with these 19 degrees, as when we are a little bit below 19, then we also need gloves and maybe a hat on. So I think I'm paid by my employer to press keyboards and things like that, and I cannot work with gloves. So 19 is somewhat a limit for what normal clothing can do during office work. Spread of infection, I think it's more or less established that we infect each other more in dry air. And it's definitely very established that we are more susceptible to infection when we are cold. So one thing is the effect of dry air on these droplets, and the other thing is our body's reaction to being cold are making our mucous membranes more vulnerable. Thermal comfort. Being an office worker working at 19 degrees requires a lot of clothing, but with enough clothing, thermal comfort can be maintained. And moisture problems, maybe the more long-lasting and important message here, 19 degrees require much more ventilation and airing out. And this where my Danish experience is that the shared responsibility is not always taking account of. So building user and building owner, operational staff, and this complicated communication when changes in the operation of buildings are happening, particularly require good cooperation. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lars. And we are a little bit ahead for the program, but let's move in for the next speaker. And I encourage you to put your questions and answers in the chat, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But let's move in for the program now. The next one is Tapio Jalo talking about experience in Finland. So Tapio, screen is yours.
Thank you, Risto, and very good morning. I'm Tapio Jalo, and we'll tell you this short presentation about the energy saving program in Finland. And first of all, some information about Synergy Group and Synergy properties and how we did do this saving program. Of course, we have now some results and also the experiences. So, Sinet Group has two parts. One is Sinet Properties and other is Sinet Defense Properties Finland. And the difference is that in Sinet Properties, there are many clients, government authorities in those buildings, and in Sinet Defense Properties is only one main client, Finnish Defense Forces. And some figures last year, we have altogether 900, almost 900 buildings. Premises area is almost 6 million square meters, and the use of energy per year about 1,200 gigawatt hours. And in this energy use, a little more than half is on Sinet Properties side. So if we look normal energy consumption in government offices in Finland, average consumption is about 200 kilowatt hours per square meter. And most of it is heating, and also, of course, in that ventilation, normally the biggest part, and then we have electricity side, where is the property-based use, most of it, and occupant-based is about 30%. That means lightning and black sockets use. So we started this energy saving program about more than a year ago, and we set our goals, first of all, to reduce the energy consumption by 50 to 75 gigawatt hours. That means that it's about 5% for the use of 1 year. And we calculated that it's possible to save as much as 10 million euros in that savings. And we also started a program to have more demand side management and possibility to reduce electricity consumption or shift it to another time. The pillars of the energy saving program are shown in this picture. Of course, the quick energy saving measures first, and customer engagement, this demand side management, and of course in this situation we have to look for new energy saving solutions as well. The results. 1 year has been now in this program, and the energy savings are about 73 gigawatt hours. That is almost 5% normal year consumption. That translates cost savings about 6 million euros, not 10, because the energy price has not been so high that we expected. These measures has been completed in more than 1,000 buildings. And we have also done conclusions, all those reported measurements, that what is not so big surprise, that 70% of savings are connected to ventilation systems and 25% indoor temperature. But what is the most important, the customer feedback has been positive, and one mark of that is that customer survey generated almost 10,000 energy saving ideas from customer side. So they are being also very interested in this program. These quick energy saving measures are, of course, once again, checking the settings and performance of HVAC systems, and we decided to lower the temperature in offices, and we go to the level of 20.5 degrees Celsius, not under that. And of course, the operating times, all systems, but in this case, also in Finland, to connect it to the real use of building. We have very much unoccupied areas, and in those areas there was possible to do more savings. Then we started to use again this kind of way to use the air conditioned units at a lower stage during very cold outside temperature. This is not only energy saving, but it's a very good way to cut the power peak of heating and electricity as well. And of course, we make sure that these not compromise safety in indoor air quality. That means that if there has some cases information about that, then we go back to the normal way to use the systems. Customer engagement was, of course, very important to make sure that everybody knows what we are doing, why we are doing, and when we are doing. And we also collected customers' own energy saving. As I said, we got them almost 10,000. And it was make this kind of satisfaction survey, and also from our open website was possible to send feedback. And of course, we have already in many buildings these possibilities to send feedback also from those buildings with QR codes, and it goes straight to the property management system. But what was the most important, that during this year there has not been big difference in customers' feedback to indoor climate. Internal communication was also taking care that there were many people and many teams with this program. So we got info to the property managers, and of course we collected all this information to our homepage on the intranet. And we also started for our own employers this kind of competition, also to find new energy saving ideas. We got them almost 100, and then the best one gets some prizes. And of course, we noticed also those buildings or areas where had good saving results, and there was extra rewarding to them. This demand side management for the electricity side was made new programming in the building automation, and now we have done it about 100 buildings are now having this new possibility to cut down the electricity use if it is needed. And of course, we are looking for new energy saving solutions. That's why we are going to start next year a new energy audits program, in which we are going to make some 200, maybe 300 energy audits in the following 4 years. We try to find more efficiency solutions, heat pumps, and of course more solar power systems. We have already 80 of them working, building automation, and better electricity use control 24/7, not only daytime. We have also been tested the smart readiness indicator. It's quite promising instrument for rating smart readiness of buildings. We have most of our big buildings are in district heating area, but we have to have more cooperation also with energy suppliers. And we are next year also testing the use of large reserve batteries of electricity use optimization and also for storage. In my point of view, when we started this program, I was very interested, or I wanted that there will be also a reporting system from the beginning, so that we can have information about the measurements monthly and in every building. So in our system, we did this kind of list of measurements. There are now in this picture in Finnish, but there are ventilation, heating, lighting, and so on. You know, this type of measurements to report, and then monthly reporting. And the colors of in this picture shows that they are also giving that information if this measurement is large or part of the building. So in this monthly reporting, we could calculate and estimate the savings achieved, and we started this from the beginning. So we were all the time aware how the savings are going. First of all, after 2 months, we got the savings, reporting savings, and done enough. So we were having that kind of savings that we are expected. Okay, what did we learn? For me, first of all, I was in a way quite surprised that there was still many ways to make the energy use more efficient. These 5% savings are much more than we normally achieve. We are in that kind of 1 to 2% level being during past few years. And when we look at this program, we can say that we need, of course, goals for savings, but also goals for indoor air quality and temperatures. Then we have to focus to the main energy use. And of course, the maintenance instructions, how we do it, and also that kind of online help with these instructions. Information, very much information and cooperation with customers. And also very important from the beginning to have this kind of continuing reporting of actions and also the savings, so we can make right moves if it's needed for this program. And of course, very much work at buildings. This is not easy way to do, but in this way we can succeed. We are going to continue this program. We are not going to back what was before it, but of course we are not expecting so much savings anymore. Next year we are waiting about 1 to 2% savings, and of course the new more energy efficient systems and solutions are coming, and they will help us also with those energy audits program. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you, Tapio. We have now a couple of questions here, and maybe still we are moving on for the program and looking for those all the questions and discussing in the end of this workshop. So that I'm proposing now we're moving on for the third speaker is Siim Meeliste from Estonia, talking about market view of this. So Siim, floor is yours.
Hello everyone, and good morning. I'm maybe coming in with a kind of a different, more theoretical view, but I hope you find this interesting, and we can discuss details, of course, in the Q&A section or afterwards if you contact me. So I'm from a consultancy called Tepsli in Estonia. It's a sustainability and energy topics consultancy. We also carry out We carry out studies for the public sector, but we also implement energy efficiency measures, do energy auditing, and also give out BREEAM and LEED certificates. And we made this study in collaboration with one of our competitors, Delta E Engineering. This study was ordered or commissioned by the Ministry of Economy in Estonia, and in trying to give back to the society, we combined our forces with one of our competitors just to see if our approaches to energy efficiency were similar, or if they survived the proof of scrutiny from our competitors in the market. So I'm talking about the assessment that we did for commercial real estate in Estonia. It's a helicopter view, meaning that the Energy Performance for Buildings Directive discussions and the Energy Efficiency Directive discussions needed input in the ministry. We have a commercial real estate section in our national renovation strategy, but that is more like a view from space, from a satellite. But the ministry was seeking a helicopter view, so a bit closer. And the aim was to find the segments and the energy savings potential in commercial real estate. So what we did was two like work packages, or two avenues that we took. First of all, we took our real energy audits, our energy efficiency reports, and our projects that we had built, both in our company and in the other company, Delta E, and we developed some generalizations on energy savings potential among some building segments. Then we tried to create some assumptions on what the energy efficiency measures could be, what their cost could be, and what they could deliver in terms of energy savings. That was one line of work. The other line of work was that we have a building registry, as everyone does, I suppose. Our building registry is quite it's well advanced in the sense that we can extract data quite easily from there, and we extracted data on the commercial real estate, or let's say non-residential real estate, and we created some groups or some segments based on the purpose of use to see how if we can apply the generalizations on energy efficiency measures that we had made beforehand. So if you look at, let's say you have like two layers, two sheets of paper. On one sheet of paper, you have the data on the purpose of use of buildings from the Estonian building registry, and some data that on those buildings that you have there. And the other sheet of paper is the how you can make different building segments more energy efficient. So we try to align those two layers or sheets of paper and see what the outcome would be. First thing we did was the grouping of the buildings. As you can see from the slide here, we created in total 8 groups. There was commerce, bureaus, entertainment, industrial buildings, hospitals, accommodation, transportation, and logistics. Most of them are self-explanatory. I will just say that the industrial buildings, we only took into account the building itself, not the industrial processes within those buildings. And with transportation, that includes all transport-related buildings, so to speak, like bus terminals, train stations, whatever have you. First, the task we had was that, as you can see, we have about 40 million square meters of floor area among these groups. We tried to exclude everything that was that we saw as out of use. So there are, for example, garages, pumping stations, power substations, buildings like that in every category. And we use some techniques to throw those buildings out. And you can see in the third column here that we reduced about 30% the floor area. So almost a third of the floor area was something that we thought was out of use or didn't have any indoor climate requirements whatsoever. And as expected, a lot of them were in industrial buildings, transportation, and logistics. Then one of the, maybe as I'm here among engineers, one of the most controversial things or assumptions we did or findings was that we started off by creating renovation packages, like tailor-made renovation packages for each of the building groups. But as we proceeded with our analysis, we saw that we had similar sites that we had analyzed together with our competitor, or well, separately, but we had analyzed different buildings. We had lists of different energy savings measures, but the outcome of those measures among a single group was very similar, meaning that let's take, for example, let's say an office building. The actual energy savings measures that you do in an office building might vary. You might replace automation, replace controllers, replace pumps, do something with the cooling units. The actions might be different, but the savings that you are able to achieve with those improvements in technical systems in an office building were similar. So in the end, since this was a very say a quick project with quite little resources, in the end we developed only 2 renovation packages for all the groups. So there were technical system improvements you could make and deep renovation improvements you could make. So I will show and explain these concepts afterwards, but yeah, so we didn't use like a tailor-made list of savings measures per building group. And roughly this is the list of things we gathered. It applies for more or less all of the building groups, and this could be taken as like a checklist, at least in our case, in our mind, as a checklist for a building owner on what they can do to improve energy efficiency. And these are the measures now in the technical system improvement package. So I will not go into very much detail with these. They are quite self-explanatory. Some of these were already explained beforehand here. It's just that some notes on the second column here. The optimization of compressed air systems, of course, only applies on industrial sites mainly. Change of primary energy source was quite seldom an energy efficiency measure, and the construction of solar power plants was suggested only on a few sites. I will show you later why. And here is the total results among the building groups. As you can see, you have different data here. Again, I will not explain in too much detail what it is. The main thing to observe here, basically, or the main thing for the ministry was the rightmost column displaying the totals across building groups. There we could see that about 55 kilowatt hours per square meter per year is the amount of energy that we could reduce in commercial real estate. This translates into energy savings potential of 27%. And the investment cost is not that high. It was based on our own analysis and on the implemented projects. You could implement the technical system renovation package for as little as 40 euros per square meter. And that translates again into a payback time of roughly 5 years or less, and end-use savings 138 million euros per year across all building groups. A few words about solar power. So this, of course, depends on the subsidy systems, grid costs, how the grid costs are designed. So this only applies in, I can verify this only applies in Estonia, this type of analysis. We constructed this table to show, well, what we knew beforehand, that PV panels make sense if you are able to consume most of the energy that you are producing and you are not selling electricity to the grid. So here you have in columns the self-consumption rates from 0 to 100%, and on the rows, or in the rows, you have the grid electricity costs and the electricity and the benefits you can get from selling the electricity to the grid. So you can see here that if we take the grid electricity costs, well, I wish they were 60 euros per megawatt hour. This includes then the electricity itself and the grid costs. They were more or less at 100 euros per megawatt hour, I would say, or even more. You can see that even then you would need to consume at least 50% of the electricity on site to have a payback time on this investment less than is the lifetime of the equipment. So we consider that the lifetime of the equipment is 25 years. All right. So a couple of conclusions again. So we applying this method, we were able to assume what the energy savings potential was in commercial real estate in Estonia. We saw that it is possible to invest 700 million euros in 2023 prices in tapping into that energy savings potential, and it would be a good investment, I would say, given the payback time 5 years or less, and we would be able to save 140 million euros per year in the end users' pockets by implementing these measures. The division of savings between groups is given here. You can see that most of it is industrial buildings, commercial, commerce, and bureaus. Of course, in Estonia, this we have to take into account that for bureaus, for example, 2/3 of them are situated in and around Tallinn, and a lot in Tartu. So when we are also having now ongoing discussions on how to create the incentives to make these investments happen, we have to take into account the fact that there are regional differences among these building groups that we should take care of. Here we have a summary of the specific energy uses before and after. A good thing, again, as with the technical system improvement measures checklist, is that this kind of can serve as a benchmark for any building owner in this building group. If you, for example, own a hotel and your specific energy use is more on the side of 319 kilowatt hours per square meter per year, not 242. This means that you are likely to have some energy savings options. And of course, here you can see as well stuff that probably we don't need to go into too much detail here, that logistics buildings have in general lower energy use, and accommodation hospitals larger energy use. We also tried to say something about CO2 or greenhouse gases. So this greenhouse gas equivalent. The savings are here. The savings are based on specific audits. So the likelihood of using fossil fuels against renewable energies, being connected to district heating network or not, this all is somehow incorporated already into the building group as well. Again, some numbers maybe I'm sure they create a lot of discussion, but which is very normal if you have a study with this type of generalization. Investment costs, as I said, are about 40 euros per square meter. The price of greenhouse gas savings, again, is 90 to 100 euros per ton, which is not that expensive considering today's prices on the market, I would say. Something that I didn't go into detail at all was the deep renovation of buildings. There you have one conclusion here, that they have a very long payback period, which usually starts from about 50 years. And something to be taken into account is that quite often these projects are not done on energy saving for energy saving purposes. So these renovations cost in Estonia about 900 to 1,200 euros per square meter, and the component of energy savings or the component of cost of measures that have an energy savings impact is very low. So it's so these measures are usually connected to everything else as well, not only energy savings. So yeah, and the final point here, as I said, these deep renovations sorry, might be attractive in Tallinn or Tartu or in bigger centers, but it's quite sure that the deep renovations exceed the value of the property after reconstruction in the regions or where the real estate market is not so competitive, and it's very difficult to finance these types of projects from the banks. But okay, that was it from me. My name was Siim Meeliste, and the colleague working for Delta E that discussed this was Martti Arak. So our contacts are here. You can see the slides afterwards, and happy to discuss if you want to.
Hey, thank you, Siim, and I still encourage you to send questions and comments in the chat there, and we can talk a little bit later of those. So we still have one last talk about indoor air quality. So Linda, floor is yours.
So thank you. The microphone is on. This is the title of the presentation: Poor indoor air quality and mold in homes in the wake of overcrowding and higher living costs and energy prices. So we will start to divide it into some boxes, and this will be a kind of complement to Lars' presentation on calculations and overview of lower thermal comfort. So these words describes also the classic sustainability questions on economy, social and technical aspects, and we will focus on the technical ones, but of course in the light of the other two. So energy prices is one, and it of course leads to higher living costs, especially for those of us who live in a direct electric building from the early 80s, as I do. It's not that fun to pay the electricity bills, but for many people it by other costs go to higher living costs. And in some families it also leads to overcrowding. It could also be that you cannot move to a bigger flat, or you can't move from home when you are a young adult and have to stay with your family. And with overcrowding, it also comes poor indoor air quality and mold. We will check at some examples later. So energy prices will also give energy saving actions. It could also affect indoor air quality and mold risks in our homes. So first we will get focus on this area of overcrowding and indoor air quality and dampness, and then we have some examples of energy saving actions and poor indoor air quality. So we know that poor indoor air quality and mold affects our health and cognitive performance and also sleeping performance and a lot of more. So a short history is that many years ago, overcrowding was a big problem. The first slide is from the 1949, and of course, even many years earlier, it has been a question of indoor quality and social class. But then in Sweden, we started the Million program, where we in the 70s and 60s started to build a lot of more residents, and also with higher quality. And that changed the overcrowding from about 50% to, in the 90s, 2.5%. And after the Million program was finished, it was about 70% overcrowding. But in the 90s, it was the best numbers of 2.5%, but this trend is unfortunately going higher, and nowadays we are up to 6 and 7% of overcrowding persons in our buildings. This picture shows those numbers for our Nordic countries. It's only from up to 2019, but anyway, we can see that the Swedish one, the blue, is a bit higher up than the other Nordic countries. It's one of the matters is that we have a lot of foreigners that we helped during the crisis. And if we look at another statistics, we can see also that the number of foreigners is also a matter of fact in all the countries that is affected by overcrowding. And the overcrowding is also a measure of income. First, we can see that most of the young adults live in overcrowded apartments. And if we look at the figure on income, we can see that the poor quintile has also the higher amount of high residential or overcrowding, while the rich ones, of course, has more square meter per person. So what is the impact? Of course, it is wear and tear that you have to, it gets damaged, the surfaces and so on, ventilation, moisture and mold is a risk factor, but also noise impact, noise within the apartments and noise between apartments. And an important risk is also fire risk and how to evacuate persons in the case of fire or other happens. Sanitaries, of course, bacteria and viruses, and also the well-being, health and social life of the families, and the children has hard to make proper schoolwork, they hang outdoors more, and it has also been a matter of shame not to inviting friends as one. So there are a lot of different shortcuts with overcrowding. But in the matter of dampness, our behaviors and habits also increase the moisture content in the air. If there are more people, we also there is more showering, cooking, laundry and dry tumbling. And also if you have these equipments in the apartment nowadays. And of course, our breath and dermal diffusion of moisture increase the moisture indoors. If you have an apartment with low indoor air quality due to these facts or others, you also want to open the windows due to thermal and indoor air quality discomfort. And that's of course that it's okay when you don't have to pay for the radiators to improve their temperature. So also we can't forget that if you have many people in the apartment, you also close the doors between rooms. I had a student who made this as a student project in one of my courses. There were many people in her family in a flat, and she shared the room with one sister. And when she slept with her, usually they had the windows open to get some fresh air, and she tried to make measurements of outdoor air and indoor air, and we got the moisture supply. So the moisture supply was about 7 when it was the normal circumstances why I opened the window and closed the door. And it was a bit more when she closed the window as well. But what we know is that closing the door could also be a big measure if the exhaust ventilation works or not. I will give you a short picture of that later. And it's not all about how people live in there or feel the indoor air quality. It's also a matter of dampness on the structure. This is 2 pictures of bathrooms built in the 60s, 50s. You can see that it's bath tubes and not shower. So if you have more than one person shower every Saturday, it will of course get more moisture load in this bathroom. And the surfaces are not built for showering, it's built for taking a bath. They also quite often with windows. So there is a risk of mold problems here. And also, as Lars told us, it was an increased production of moisture can also lead to condensation and mold on surfaces. Mold on surfaces is not very common in Swedish buildings, but nowadays in those overcrowding apartments is actually a problem. But another issue is also that mites allergy. When you have about more than 40 to 60% of relative humidity, there's a huge risk of having mites in your bed, and you get allergy from that. You can't sleep without the nose is stuck and so on. I have not seen so many measures on overcrowding apartments, but a study of from Hamid and Mjörnell and persons from Lund University, they made a Wolfe computer calculation. This show increased temperature. This is the winter time and the other is summertime. And we can see that if there were 19 persons, like quite many persons in one apartment in this example, but we can see that the temperature is much higher, both in the winter and in the summer. If there are more persons in those apartments, it's not that hard to guess. But in summer days, we have more than 30 degrees in their calculations. And of course, also the carbon dioxide indoors in those overcrowded apartments is increasing compared to smaller families. We don't die of 3,500 ppm of carbon dioxide, but it's more than doubled what should be if we go to the public health authorities minimum levels of 4 liters per second per person, gives about 1,500. And this also shows the increase of relative humidity. In the most overcrowded apartments, there will be almost 100% due to their calculation, but most of them are also over 60%. And you can see also the mites risk, and the risk of mold on indoor surfaces also increases. So this is the relative humidity on gypsum board, wintertime and summertime, and we can see the time for relative humidity is over 80%, is for a long time, long period. So this is this could be a big problem. So we should manage overcrowding to how should we do? Yeah, we need to build more houses, and the Swedish Authority, National Board of Housing, has calculated that we need more than 67,000 more apartments or residents the next 7 years. And a huge amount of buildings also have to be renovated, multi-family houses. So in the make of poor indoor air quality and energy saving actions, there are a lot of things to say, but Swedish study showed a few months ago, they made a study on what does the Swedish persons know about energy and electricity saving. And this is one of the results. Many people start to shower for a shorter time, and the most of them avoid using lighting in rooms where not staying, not use tumble dryer, avoid washing textiles without a full load, unplugged electricity when not in use, and bought energy efficient products and lamps. And you can see there is a number of persons lowering their temperature and also lower than 18 degrees. And actually this one is one of the most important one to save energy, but as you know. So another one is of course to decrease ventilation. This slide happened to go to show, I would like to show it before, but now we do that. It's a picture of exhaust ventilation in an apartment. And we know if you open a window, it affects the ventilation in the other rooms. So what happens if you close the door? The exhaust ventilation from the windows in that room will also decrease due to pressure differences. So if you open doors, open windows, closing doors in an apartment with exhaust ventilation, it matters the ventilation efficiency. And this is also the matter of overcrowding. If you want to have some peace and calm and in your bedroom, if you have a lot of small sisters and brothers when you want to sleep. Lars also talked about ventilation and moisture. So this is a classic formula from moisture supply, effects about from moisture production, volume of the space, and ventilation. This is the normal ventilation, 0.5. In many of the multi-family houses, it's of course also lower in the old ones. And we can then see a moisture supply for about 2 and 3, which is quite okay. But when you increase the moisture production, the moisture load will be higher. So for one person, it's about 40 to 80 grams per hour and in rest, but you also have to add shower, cooking, wash, laundry, etc. So the moisture production could be even more than 14, could be doubled, and the moisture load will be even more, certainly if the ventilation is bad. Another action for energy saving is also to have more insulation on the attics. There's a classic example of this example could be that you lower the ventilation and you get a pressure picture that differs from the light under pressure that you want to have. So you get some overpressure in the upper part of the building, and it could lead to, if it's not airtight, a convection forces making air with that includes moisture to condense on the cold attics. And also even more if you insulate, extra insulation on the cold attic to save energy, then the temperature gets even lower on the attic here, and lower temperature, higher relative humidity. It's basic building physics. So a very short summary is what we have to combat overcrowding that needs a multidisciplinary approach. We have to do it smart and also affordably. People must have the possibility to move to a renovated flat or move back to their own flat when it's been renovated. So that should be a focus to renovate in a smart way. And also more knowledge among the residents how to save energy without affecting the indoor air quality and risk of moisture and mold. And more knowledge in building physics, both for residents and building owners. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Linda. And now we have heard all the 4 talks, and I think we can move on for the discussion part. And I think we got a couple of comments here. And I start with the Lars. This first is dealing with your slides where you presented indoor temperatures at 19. That there's over 1,000 hours, more than 70% of relative humidity. Is that dealing with some kind of climatic data for Denmark, or how you have got it? That's maybe the first question here.
You're right. It's as a test reference year from some years back. We created what was the average of the preceding decade, and with the variation normal. So the test reference year from 2010, but it's detailed and with, to my knowledge, full simulation of all kinds of effects.
I think both of you, Lars and Linda, because you have the same topic somehow, a little bit different angle, you saw some kind of calculation there with some kind of theoretical modeling, but do you have data, measurement data of actual humidity and temperatures there in the field? Like your last thought, do you have any data in Denmark?
So of course we have plenty of data. I haven't seen a proper analysis of what happened when these energy prices went up so much. I've had many reports from operational staff that all of a sudden tenants had an increase in mold, and as opposed to Linda, as our thinking is that it's old data is 1 out of 8 flats do have visible mold growth, and when it's serious, it's obviously much more than 1 out of 8.
But Linda, and you also presented, I think, simulation result there.
So I haven't found any data on measurements when I try to search for it. But I have some measurements from my students, but I cannot show them. They were not that very scientific made. But I think, as Lars said, we need more measurements, and also, as you have also heard, the reports from building owners and property managers.
Lars, you have in the slide some recommendation, but if you summarize, if you reduce temperature level slightly, like 19 degrees there. What is your recommendation there? Increase the ventilation, or what we should do?
Yeah, I think I said it. As a never feel cold, always dress up on clothing and add more if you feel cold, because it's you put yourself at risk for being less productive and less able to learn if you always have to think that your skin is cold. So that's one recommendation. And the other one, of course, protect your property and acknowledge that when we are closer to outside temperatures, our ventilation effort should be much increased. So these two messages, remember to open up your windows and make cross drafts twice as many times as if you were in the old times of having 22 degrees inside, and that's the two main messages.
But I'm just thinking that if you increase ventilation there, is that the effect of energy higher than you rise up the temperature? Have you considered that maybe the effect is you consume more energy if you open the windows and increase the flows?
Yeah, as how to ventilate, as how to comply with my message. And it's obvious that most of the heat capacity in a dwelling is not related to the air, but is related to structures and furniture and surfaces. So in order not to overspend on energy use, of course, you have to open a lot of windows and make this airing out quick, not to cool down inner structures. But it's also, of course, obvious that improved ventilation systems and investments in heat recovery in the available ventilation systems, that's much more energy efficient than the immediate recommendation from me, air out. But air out quick and efficient with fully open windows several places in your dwelling and close them again after a few minutes, then you're not overspending on energy to reheat your house. And I'm sure that twice increased airing out when you are home is as still you save energy from reducing down to 19.
Do you have, Linda, anything to add here for your point of view, overcrowding?
I agree, and we could also, that's that picture of exhaust ventilation and closing doors and open windows. It's also connecting to what Lars said. And as maybe the cross window opening is not that, it's an old way to make a good indoor air quality at home, but people might have forgotten. So they put just a little bit of the window open for the full day, and you know that the radiators go on for that, and more energy will be lost. So it's quite complex.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we can move on for this energy topic, and Tapio has here I think he has a couple of questions. The first dealing with this demand side management and how it works. So is the demand response what you are implementing in Senaatti properties? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, that's a new way to use the systems, and that we find out the possibilities in our big buildings first, and then we found this about 100 buildings that it was possible to cut down and the new programming to the building automation was done. Of course, it's not so big that capacity is about 20 megawatts in those buildings together. But of course, we wanted to do that to help the situation. And this so-called saving mode is manually putting down by the operation or the maintenance operator service. And there is those air conditioned units which are not so critical. We have also different kind of electricity heating systems that are not so critical all the time. That was noticed, and of course lightning and that kind of things too. And so it differs from building to building, and there was also that question of how we get the signal. That was so that in Finland, this Fingrid, which is the Finland's electricity transmission system operator, has that kind of website and also that kind of mobile phone application to send information how is the situation in this whole Finland's electricity system. So there were two levels that was indicated that the shortage is possible, and when the other stage was when the shortage is the risk is big, and then finally, and luckily we didn't go to that shortage is on situation. But this information was also sent to our operating service staff by mobile phone, and that kind of my own Senate's own alarm system, that if it's needed, then it's done, and this kind of. And now we have also have this kind of testing and doing this, and it's very important to test because quite many buildings it was so that there was also that kind of systems in with this cutting that they were not good, and so it's important to test also this, that everything works like it should be.
I would like to ask that you have several hundreds buildings, and how you implement in practice those, that you don't have any big switch in the Helsinki headquarters that you change all the buildings 1 degree lower temperatures or using demand response. It's needing a lot of manual work also there.
Yes. That was the way it was. It was done by the building and from the our operation service people, that they do it when they get the signal that now it's needed.
There is other question here dealing with Tapio, that there's many succession for savings by occupants. That how useful are these for your building owner point of view? Are they practical? How can you implement those?
Some of them, yes, but of course, most of these was that kind of things that users can notice. For example, lightning and indoor temperature. But of course, that was also good signal. If in some places was too high indoor temperature, we can go and make it right. But of course, they were, as I hear more about building specific issues, that not so big surprise, but one signal that the users, occupants were very interested also to do something in this situation.
Tapio, in your talk, you didn't talk anything about the problems or challenges. I think this was quite positive, and seems so that the result what you have got it in the Senatic properties has been quite good. Can you say anything negative for that? Any bad experience?
Now, of course, in this kind of presentations, we have this very good size, but in one was in the beginning there was a little bit that kind of feedback that when we were telling that we are now going to lower the indoor temperature and we are going to do different kind of things, then in the first place it started to come that kind of feedback also, that now in our building the indoor air is not so good. But the situation was still that we haven't do anything in those buildings. That that tells us that when you are only telling that you are going to do something in those buildings, it can also start that kind of opinions that now there is something going on and something is not so good, and that was the situation was better when we just give more information and was connected to all those people that there are some afraid also in these cases. That was one, and of course there was in this electricity new programming to have these systems. There were also different kind of companies doing also this same new automation programming that we didn't get so fast. It has taken much more longer time to do that we expected.
There is still one question dealing with this demand response and for Finland and Estonia, but I'm starting for Tapio for here that do you implement any batteries in the buildings? Is it just a peak cutting what you are using, and how the solar PVs use only use? You are not selling energy for PVs.
In our buildings, we only use it in those buildings. We are not having any selling, but now we are going to test with these very large batteries also to have them in this case, so that we can put the solar energy in it and so on, but it's only coming to test next year.
Coming for frequency market for the battery or no?
Or maybe I'm not so familiar. This is this electricity side. It's not so. I don't know that so good, but that's I know that there is going to be testing, so that it's only with these possibilities to study.
Okay, thank you, Tapio. And then I think the Siim also continue for Estonia side that you in the buildings you implemented PV. You mentioned that is only on use, but the batteries are you implemented there?
Yes, I think among our customers we have a couple of battery projects for an office building, but mostly it's industrial sites that install batteries, and they use it for shifting peak load to different hours during the day. So not participating in the frequency market, but it's just their own, let's say, financial risk management project to have the possibility to not consume as much electricity during the expensive hours possible.
Siim, you give overview of the building stock and investment and how profitable they are, but if you have to select one building type that is more important, what is that? Where you have put all your investment if you want to select only one?
I think offices, if I to be honest, because this is where the most people work. And I think Lars already, I think it was Lars who mentioned that if you're feeling cold and you are, or uncomfortable and you're constantly thinking about that, you're being less productive. So I think dealing with the offices is probably the most important thing. But as I said, we have a couple of workshops that have been organized, and we need to think about it a little more to find the correct incentives, because with office buildings you have the split incentives between the owner and the tenant to invest in energy efficiency, and with industrial buildings normally the energy use is such a low cost component in the total sum of costs, or let's say the turnover of a company, that it just doesn't make into the priority list, the energy efficiency side.
You're working in the commercial side, and in your customers, what is the acceptable payback time in Estonian market?
Depends. It's most difficult with commerce, so with shops or hardware stores, where they say that why should I need to invest in energy efficiency with a payback time of 2 years when I can order 2 containers of Crocs from China with the same money and sell them this year and make twice the money back instantly. So with commerce, it's the most difficult. So I would say acceptable payback time would be around 2 years, something like that, 2 or 3 years.
Do you have, in the government side, any funding scheme, subsidization for the investment, energy saving measures?
No, we don't. And this is currently being discussed, how we should, if and how we should support the commercial real estate in making these investments. So the problem is that that even if we gave some money, just cash, to the companies, they still, at least during our workshops, they say that they still probably wouldn't take that because they perceive it as too much of an administrative burden to deal with government grants. And the amounts are quite low, and as I said, the owner-tenant problem still remains, that the building owner might take the grant and make the investment, but all the savings are left to the tenant who pays the energy bills. So that's why they don't have the motivation.
In your calculation, you saw the result for CO2 emissions and cost savings, but how sensitive are those results? Because energy carriers are now changing and CO2 emission factors changing, and also energy prices is very challenging. Have you make sensitive analysis how that did change for different scenarios?
No, not really, to be honest, because this was done, I think all of it was done basically in 1 month, so we didn't have enough time to go into that, but we just, it wasn't even required from the ministry side, but we still decided to somehow do this work or this type of assumption. But you can see from the results that let's say, how to put it. So for natural gas, we have a lot of consumption in industrial processes and residential buildings that are some new developments of single family buildings somewhere close to Tallinn or Tartu that are consuming natural gas for heating. The remainder mostly is only for industrial processes and peak load in district heating networks. So when natural gas prices went up, the industries changed to LPG or liquefied petroleum gas. So in this sense, yeah, I think those who were able to do something during the energy crisis, for example, change to heat pumps or something else, or pellets or some other form of biomass, they have done it, but it's a small fraction of the whole consumption. Really.
I think we have covered all the questions and comments what we have it here and what is on my list here on the table. Do any speakers have anything important or burning platform to say now? What we don't cover, what rise up? Lars or Linda, anything? Tapio, Siim?
No.
Okay, if not, I think thank you for all the speakers and all the participants, and I hope that many people will listen this later in the SCANVAC webpage, and also thank you for Siru and Mervi behind the lines there. And I will close this session, and if you all the speakers will stay a couple of minutes online, we can discuss it after this workshop. Thank you for all.
Thank you.
Thanks.